presidents to represent me. I'm out for presidents to represent me.
Yeah.
I'm out for presidents to represent me.
Yeah.
I'm out for every presidents to represent me.
Yeah. I was feeling pretty good about my country till Donald Trump come and tried to steal my lunch meat. Now I'm skipping school afraid he's gonna punch me. A real life bully, I hope he falls into pose. But he's so damn rich, I bet he'll buy out the Pope. Wealth inequality's growing out of control, but the Koch brothers conquer, they're coming after your vote. Thought you should know that the planet's getting hotter, and that's just sad to see. Gunmen running into schools, that's a tragedy. Black lives matter, well all lives actually, but black lives matter more. Police catastrophes and all that new income, man, it's going to the richest. Top 1% so that they can build their business. The rich, they tend to win this game of life because they rigged it. Their money's in the politics, it's sickening. I'm not done. Trump and the Republicans are so out of touch. They insist on playing tackle while the country's playing touch. Like when it comes to healthcare, they can never spare a buck, but when it's military, man, they cannot spend enough. Bernie Sanders, on the other hand, probably should be knighted, standing up to billionaires and citizens united, and taking money out of politics. I'm super glad that Bernie Sanders raised his 26 mil without a super PAC. In fact, Bernie voted no to the Patriot Act. In fact, Bernie voted no to war in Iraq. In fact, Bernie voted no to personal attacks. He wants to break up banks and legalize the dank, and Bernie wants to ban that old death penalty. If murder is illegal, why should murder be the penalty? Who the fuck cares that the man is like 74? He supported gay rights since the 70s. A democratic socialist is the remedy, and Donald Trump is the fucking enemy.
Well, I guess Donald Trump isn't exactly the enemy. The influence that big money has on politics is the real enemy.
Every presidents to represent me. Every presidents to represent me. Every presidents to represent me. Every presidents to represent me.
Hi everyone, welcome to another edition of We the People. This week we are going to the West Coast and we're going to be interviewing Preston Picus. He is running for a candidate in the 12th District of California, which is the San Francisco area. It is also Nancy Pelosi's territory, so this is exciting for all of us because this is a big chance for us to get a progressive candidate in a role like that. So welcome, Preston.
Thanks so much. Thanks for having me.
What we wanted to do is we wanted to let your viewers know that we have the comment chat room that you can make comments or questions to Preston anytime during the show, and we'll have John Spalding come on and ask those questions periodically, and we can address them right then and there. So we ask that you would either go to his website. Slide 4, John has got his website link. It's Pikus2016.com. Feel free to check out how he feels about the issues, look at videos on his Facebook page, and make sure that you keep watching the show and ask those questions so we can address them today. So if you're ready, Preston, I'd love to just introduce you and let you take some time to tell people who you are and a little bit about where you're at.
Great. Yes. My name is Preston Picus. I'm running for Congress in California's 12th District, the San Francisco County. In California. It's commonly known as Nancy Pelosi's district, though one might argue that individuals don't own districts. They have to run for election there. So she hasn't had a close race since 1987, and I'm running as an independent, as a declined to state or no party preference candidate, because I believe that we need to significantly change the way Congress works in order to save this country. I start from a position of 0.01% of Americans funding 80-something% of the elections, and I end with wealth inequality being so great and so disproportionate and such a massive block to the American public that we have to act right now before it's too late to stop our country from its decline. So I'll give you a little background on my. Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to ask you about that. I was going to say you went to college, and you also were a public school high school teacher. So you've already been through the education system, not only as a student but also as an educator. What made you choose to go into public service? In addition to that, because those are some pretty public and community serving roles that you've been in.
Right. No. So I graduated college. I went to Columbia. And when I came out, people said, well, you go and you make a lot of money. That's what you do. You find something You could go into finance. A lot of people going into finance at that time. I went into marketing for a couple of years, and then I tried law a little bit. And I worked at a group home for abused and abandoned children on the weekends. Right when I moved out of college, my two best friends are psychologists, and they were working towards getting their masters, and so they were spending time working with children that were wards of the state. So I took a job there, and I liked it. I enjoyed working with kids. And so after a few more years of hating how much you make a lot of money, but it wasn't exactly for me, okay? And so eventually I moved over full-time, and I became a public school teacher, and I've been a public school teacher now for 10 years, and I really enjoy it. This is what I tell my kids. If you want to know what you're supposed to be doing with your life, you take an estimate of how much you look at the clock when you're at work. When I was at work doing marketing, or if I was doing law, I was watching the clock all the time, saying, when is it time for me to go home? I am tired of being here. When I am working with kids, when I'm trying to help them understand how to do things, or just giving them my impression, or doing some math problems, or whatever it is, I don't watch the clock. All of a sudden it's 3:30 and class is over, and I'm like, oh wow, that's very surprising. That's how you know you're supposed to be doing what you're supposed to be doing. So that's how I got into public education. So I'm a public school teacher, and one thing I'd say about that is when I left marketing, I can't tell you how many people told me, you're an idiot. You're about to waste your life. You could make all this money and you could do all these things, but instead you're going to waste your life in education. And that's the American sentiment that we have here. One of my good friends, she was just telling me that, in China, for instance, where she's from, they don't have that. Being a teacher is a really terrific thing. In Norway, where they have great education, being a teacher, it's the best thing. If you graduate from school and you're lower in your class, you don't get to be a teacher.
It's like our country really undervalues what it means to be educating our future generations, to be involved in our younger generations' lives. You also do coaching as well, right? Wrestling and football, but you also played previously too. That's one way to connect with students and with younger generations, that, you're seeing a big need that's missing there, aren't you?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I taught for 5 years down in Vista, which is a town just north of San Diego, and we had tough kids coming from tough backgrounds, but we brought them into the wrestling room, and we got them going to college and wrestling in college, and I'm really proud of those guys. A couple of guys graduating this year. Jesus Ambries, I'll give you a shout out. Michael Herrera, both at Cal State Bakersfield. Sean Pollock graduated last year. Jared Foreman, if you're watching, he's wrestling for John Hopkins right now. Joe Granger, he's down at Cal Poly. We got a bunch of kids that came through the program, and right now I got a bunch of tough kids on our team. Kareem Shakur, who wrestles for me right now in high school, became only the second wrestler in the history of the TAM High to place at the North Coast Sectional Championship. Anyway, very prestigious honor. So we do a lot of great stuff, and we have a lot of great success.
Oh man, thank you so much for saying their names, because I think that we need to put faces to the names and to the numbers that we see on paper, because it really does bring the humanity back into the picture. And I think that's what a lot of politicians have lost in the process. Maybe that's why looking for a job that pays a lot of money seems to be an easier road for them, when all they have to do is just say yes and keep their mouth closed and never actually stand up for anything. It becomes easy to live that life. But when they look at that clock, like you said, are you a principled person who can keep looking at that clock daily, knowing that there's people around you that you could offer help for? You actually have great ideas that could contribute to their well-being. So I wanted to find out from John really quick, John Spalding. He's doing our comment moderation today. John, is there any questions or comments anyone has regarding Preston's life or his role as choosing to run against Nancy?
Oh yeah, thanks, Angela. Couple quick ones. What subject did you teach, or do you teach?
So my first year I taught English, and then I taught mathematics, and now I teach resource, or in the special education department. So for people who aren't familiar with it, I teach students that learn a little bit differently and basically need a little bit of help in the gen ed curriculum. So they go to 6 periods a day rate of class, and then I just help them out for 1 period. We call it academic workshop. So that's what I do now. And actually what's funny is most of the time we still need math help. We do a lot of math in the academic workshop. So
Gotcha. Okay, cool. And that one was from Sekmara. I hope I'm saying your name right. Think It Through wants to know, what are your thoughts on charter schools? Just give us a little bit on the topic and what you might have to say in terms of your thoughts about it.
Sure. So, I got a ton of stuff to say on this, so I'll give you a brief one. Charter schools are a good idea. They weren't intended to replace the public school system. It's supposed to be a school for kind of a specific need, and in that function, I think that they're great. I think some of the problem that we get into is that there's a big reform movement, led by, the figurehead is somebody that's easy to pick on, like Michelle Rhee, who's paid for by Walmart, who are looking to privatize education under the guise of reform. And so they push these charter schools, which is basically their way of taking away, destroying public school systems. Charter schools, there's some good stuff to them. There's some great things that they can do. But you also have to realize that in a public education, we have a requirement in public schools to take every single student and teach them to the best of our ability, where charter schools and private schools don't really have that. They can expel students, or they can decline to have them into their attendance. And so if you're going to my problem is that when we throw charter schools into these debates, what we say is, we could fix public school by taking the money, giving it to a for-profit company that's going to do a charter school, and it's going to make everything better. And that just isn't going to be the case. You need public education. You need the free and approved public education that the United States currently offers, with an augment or an auxiliary of a charter school. But we need to do more to reform and to improve our current public education system, and we need to do much less with these so-called reformers that are, basically looking for ways to capitalize on our education system. Like Michelle Rhee, she's such an easy one because it's such bad corruption. So. Yeah.
One more quick one. How do you feel about superdelegates? And let's give you 5 words. No, I'm just kidding.
Look, I've been talking about this for a long time, and people, the further this goes, the more I try to tell people, listen, there's nothing in our Constitution that says the Democratic primary has to be Democratic. There's nothing that says the Republican primary has to be Democratic. They are not governed by our laws. What they are schemes developed by these two parties for nominating a person. So you have to think about it in a similar way to a video poker machine, okay? A video poker machine, there's no law that says it has to pay out 1 out of 10 times, 1 out of 20 times. What they do is they do some math and they figure out how often does it have to pay out in order for you to feel like you're winning enough to keep playing. So if it never pays out, you'll be like, this is a waste of time, and you'll quit. If it pays out too much, they're losing some money. So they find that little sweet spot. And that's what the Democratic National Committee's done. That's what the RNC has done, is they let voters feel like they're participating in the process, but then the superdelegates kind of come along, and at the end of the day, they're just going to pick their candidate. But if they just said it's going to be Hillary Clinton, well, you wouldn't be committed to going and voting for her. You wouldn't feel like you had a part of that process. So in the same way of a video poker machine, the Democratic primary just has to make people feel like they're winning enough that they'll keep participating.
Yeah, right. Good point. And that one was from Irene Burns, so I just wanted to make sure that she got credit for that. Angela, I think that's good for right now. We'll get some more when we come back.
Okay. Thanks so much, John. So John's slide 6 has a list of total of 469 seats in the U.S. Congress are going to be up for election in November. And I want to put this, I think I've put this slide on the show a couple of times, but the reason that I want to keep pressing this is because this election is not only about Bernie Sanders running for president, but we have a lot of seats to fill. And we have seats like Nancy Pelosi's, who have been filling that seat for 30 years and have not been contested and not have been challenged over the years, because big money in the government and in politics has caused some roadblocks. This is a different year. This is a different time, and we're on the cusp of such a huge political movement that will place many people like Preston and like Alex Law and like Terrence Strait in office that will help start overturning things. And I know that we keep saying that we need to get out there and phone bank, we need to vote, we need to canvass, and that's true. We need to do all those things, but we need to also look in our areas, in our states, and find the candidates like Preston here who are running for Congress that you may not have actually seen in the media because they don't have the large war chests of money. But find them, watch this show, and we'll keep interviewing as many people as we can. But make sure you tell people and share the word on it, because this is how Bernie Sanders will be effective as president. When at least half of those 469 seats are accounted for and they are progressive candidates, we will see huge movement in our Congress. So I wanted to give Preston a chance to talk about this because this is a big topic for him. And if you want to just go through slides 7, 8, and 9, and 10, John, as he's discussing this, it's kind of a broad topic, but I'll let Preston discuss how with Nancy Pelosi in charge in San Francisco, how big money in politics has affected his area, and this is why he's running. So.
Yeah, great. So actually, I did a AMA, I think yesterday, for a ballot website, and they were asking that. And so if you take a look at the way Nancy Pelosi votes, she's very progressive. Up and down votes, she seems to say the right things, she votes on the right things. But what people need to understand is that there is one way to pass a bill, but there are thousands of ways to not pass a bill. And so when you talk about how does money impact our political system, I mean, you could point out, the time that Nancy Pelosi seemed to get rid of a bill on credit cards and then was offered this IPO with Visa. You could talk about the time that she built the light rail to come through San Francisco and really have this lucrative impact on some properties that big donors for her had, okay? But without that, even take that out of the equation, because, we can argue about those things. The fact that you're getting a $5,400 donation from an individual, you got to ask yourself, who is donating $5,000? Even forget super PAC money, forget the millions of dollars that's flooding in through, these illicit sort of not backdoor. They used to be backdoor. Now that's front door systems. $5,400. That's the current maximum allowable donation to a candidate for Congress. Who can afford that? I can't afford that. I'm sure you can't afford that. In fact, 99.99% of us can't afford that. And when you think about what does that mean, 0.01% of Americans, that's people making $10 million a year or more. I mean, you could even expand it to 0.02% of Americans. That would be people making $2 million a year or more. You've got a broken system. There's this table. There's these decisions that are being made. Congresswoman Pelosi's at this table. She's bringing the people that donate to her, and they are deciding what bill is going to go before a committee, what's going to come to a floor for a vote, all these different things that are going to happen. And we, the people, because we can't pay $5,000, I can't pay $5,000, you can't pay $5,000, we don't get to be at the table. And so you could say, trust us. This is what they say. Trust us. We're doing the right things for you. Believe me. Even though you didn't give me any money, even though I'm dependent upon this money for my power, believe me, at the end of the day, I have your best interest in mind. And I say, how can we believe that? And if you take a look at a great book called Winner Take All Politics by these two economists, they show that in the last 40 years, Congress has done more to take money from middle and lower income Americans and shuffle it up to the 0.01% than any other body on earth. The thing that is killing us the most is our own U.S. Congress. And that's why you see them with a 6% approval rating and a 97% incumbency rate, because the money. It's the money. I mean, it's simple. So we need representation. I think that what Congresswoman Pelosi has done is great. She broke the glass ceiling. She was the first woman Speaker of the House, and those things really are admirable. But at the end of the day, I don't think that we can afford to have somebody that doesn't represent us sitting in that seat any longer. And you say, well, that's just one seat out of 435 voting seats in the U.S. House. But like we were mentioning before, well, we need to take back 50 of these. We need 20 this year, we need 50 in 18, and we need 100 by 2020. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to undo the effects that this bad Congress is having. And if you want to ask yourself, how do I know my lawmaker has my best interest in mind? Answer this question. Did you give him $5,000? If you gave him $5,000, they might actually think about something that you want to say. If you haven't given them $5,000, they don't care. They couldn't care less what you think about anything. And
isn't that that's also why Bernie Sanders has brought up the idea of publicly funded campaigns instead of doing all this, because then it takes the money off the table, and it's no longer about someone's vote meaning more because they have more money than somebody else. Everyone's on a more level playing field. Now you've actually done something because you're not accepting super PACs either, and we want to make sure that we plug your website. It's slide 7, I think it was. Slide 4 shows his website again, John, if you wanted to show that. So for people can donate directly to Preston's campaign. But you have something uniquely different. I wanted you to mention that. It's like 1/10 of the donation. You were explaining that in the AMA, and I thought it was really smart. I haven't heard of anyone thinking that way before.
Right. So, actually, I've met with several of the big campaign finance advocates. Larry Lessig and I drank a beer one time several years ago, and I said, you got to stop the money coming in. And he said, that's crazy. You got to win first, and then you can stop the money. I don't agree. I really believe Lawrence Lessig's been terrific for this movement. Republic Lost is the book that sort of got me started on this in the first place, so I admire him and I look up to him. However, I don't find it compelling when a candidate says, I'm going to stop campaign finance reform, I'm going to make this happen, but first I'm going to get a lot of money and get elected, and then I'm going to do it. You know, it's got the smell of like Ides of March to it, right? So what I say is I only accept $540. My reasoning for that, and look, I've left a lot of money on the table. I've probably left $90,000 on the table from people that want to donate $5,400 to my campaign. But by only accepting a maximum, I only accept a maximum donation of $540. And that's because I've had college kids, you know, with no money in the bank, 23-year-olds donate $540. I've had millionaires, multimillionaires donate $540. Anybody, I mean, not anybody. If you take a look, median household income in San Francisco is a bit higher than it is in the nation. It's somewhere around $80,000. Nationwide, it's $56,000. But the take home from a $56,000 income is like $38,000 or something like this. So $5,400 is more than 10% of your take home pay. You can't afford that. Let's just face facts. The average American isn't donating $5,400, right? $540 is a little bit closer to 1.5% to 2% of your take-home pay. So if you really believe in what I'm doing, if you're like, Preston Picus for Congress is the best thing of all time, you could be a maximum donor for $540. There will be nobody that has donated more money than you. And that's my way of saying I believe you can't have a republic that is dependent upon the people when the people can't max out their contributions. So I'm putting my money where my mouth is. Is it going to cost? It's going to cost me a little bit of money in the beginning, but people are responding to it. When I talk to people and I say the most I'll take is $540, they can't believe it. They think there's a gimmick because all politicians are liars, right? And they're all doing something crazy. And then when they figure out that I'm honest, this is true. I had a guy try to donate 50 more bucks. They came in through our system. He was at $540. He tried to donate 54 more dollars. We refunded the money back to him. So we will not have more than $540. And I believe and that's important. And look, here's what you need to do. America, look, I don't know how many of you are out there listening right now, but this is what you got to do. You find candidates like us, and you vote for them. I don't care if we agree on abortion or if we agree on marriage equality, which it's a woman's right to choose, and we got to make things equal in this country. But anyway, I don't care if we agree on all those things. What we need to do is you need to stop looking at the politics, the hot-button issues. You need to say, did this man or woman take bribes in the form of big campaign donations? And if they did, you gotta not vote for them. Don't vote for them. If they didn't, then vote for them. And if you start to vote for these people, you can overturn Congress. That's why you got to run every 2 years in Congress. That's why the Treasury's got to get re-upped every 2 years. That's why the military's got to get re-upped every 2 years. Because you get an opportunity every 2 years to change Congress. So stop voting based on all these other things. First, have your first filter. Did they take bribes? If they took bribes, if they got a super PAC, if they've got big money coming into them, I don't care how closely they say they align with your values. You didn't give them $5,000. They don't care about what you have to say.
Yeah, it's not like politicians can try and get away with saying like, well, I take the money and I stand on my own 2 feet. No one leads me, because that's completely false. There are too many politicians out there that do exactly as the lobbyists have paid them to do. And they'll say something to the public in one instance and say something different behind closed doors, and we're sick of that. We're sick of the dishonesty. So thank you for saying that. I want to make sure people understand the number that you're explaining, because I think that when they donate today, I hope that they jump on your website and do that right away and offer to volunteer to help as well. So what I'd like to do, John, is show a video. This is one of Preston's videos. You can find them on YouTube, and you can also find him on his Facebook page. We'll be showing that link throughout. So as soon as that's ready, we'll run that, and we'll discuss a couple of other issues after that.
Sounds great.
What if I told you about an investment opportunity where you could earn 10 to 20 times the return you'd make on any other investment in the world? You'd probably think it was too good to be true, or at least too good to be legal, right? Well, since 2010, the best investment you can make is called buying a congressperson. It's simple, it's easy, and it's fast. When you buy a representative with campaign bribes, you get huge tax breaks, changes to regulations, and big, lucrative government contracts. So why doesn't everyone just buy a congresswoman? Well, for starters, the initial buy-in is more than $10,000, and if you want a guaranteed return on investment, you're going to have to spend closer to $1 million. As Congress works to respond to the interests of the big investors, average Americans are suffering economic inequality. So what can you do if you're interested in investing in America and not just interested in bribing politicians for personal gain? It starts by supporting independent candidates who pledge not to take big donations or any super PAC money. We need to vote for candidates who don't accept those kinds of bribes. It starts by supporting candidates like Preston Picus. Preston has been fighting for the little guy his entire life as a teacher, coach, economist, and a public servant. Preston Picus will stand up to big money corporations and organizations and fight to save America from corruption. Join us at www.picus2016.com. Let's get in a fight with corruption.
My name is Preston Picus, and I approve this message.
So that was a really fun video to explain what was going on, not only in San Francisco, but also just in general, what's happening with politics and the corruption of money. I love that animation. Thank you for having that on your website and for sharing more bits like that. I think it's important for people to know what's really going on. And I want to point out, too, that some of his videos are really fantastic, and they have quite biting headlines, so definitely pay attention. It's one of those things where you don't get to see that a lot in politics from politicians. They're always trying to, gloss over what they're saying and try to slip in mean comments without actually coming out and saying it. And I think it's important to speak the truth, and that's exactly what Preston does in a lot of his videos. So, Preston, why don't you tell us a little bit about you mentioned being, independent, as in not the independent party, but not affiliated with the independent or with any party in particular. But you have seen this two-party system take over our country, and Bernie Sanders has been standing up through that, not taking super PACs for such a long time. So I was wondering if you could tell us when you said that you've got to start now, and he's obviously starting now just like you without taking super PACs, what can you tell other people and voters out there that would assure them that you're going to be able to make a lot of these choices? Because I think that you mentioning the limit that you've placed on the funds I think that's a huge one. That shows that your integrity when you say that you're not going to let someone else's view matter more than any others. I think that speaks volumes what you're doing with the funding. But I was wondering if you would like to share a little bit more about what you believe, as far as you and Bernie both believe, is parallel. I guess I'm trying to say what do you agree with Bernie on as far as the two-party system, what we could do as voters to abolish it, really?
Sure. Well, first I got to give a shout out to Joe Wesley, who made that video. He is a brilliant filmmaker. You want some videos made for your campaigns? You call me up. You email us at campaign@picus2016.com. That's my communications director. I'll put you in touch with him. He's cost effective. He costs a little bit of money, but he's nothing like what you're going to look at out there. And the man is brilliant. Joe Wesley. I don't know what his production company is. Anyway, yes. So let me give myself a little bit of credit. Back in 2008, I called Bernie Sanders' campaign. I called his office, and I talked to somebody over there, and I said, he needs to run for president. Okay, he didn't run for president, but I believed, as an independent in the Senate and as a man who stood on his principles for the number of years that he stood on his principles, that we needed somebody like him to run. And then Obama, came and beat Hillary, and that's okay for what it is. He was let through because he is, all this talk about communists and all this kind of stuff. Obama's a right of center, a little bit pro-corporate kind of guy, and he's gotten a lot of things done. He's a progressive in a number of ways, and I do appreciate some of the things that he's done, but I've been really disappointed by other things, like, failing to prosecute a single investment banker for their complicitness in the crimes that were committed in the meltdown, punishing whistleblowers, putting more people in jail over the Espionage Act than all presidents put together, and all these things. And so you can make arguments he did it politically or for these things, but at the end of the day, when you watch a movie like The Big Short, like we were talking about earlier, and you see what these guys did to this country and the way that, stupidity and greed drove this criminal behavior. And we have nothing. We have no indictments. We have no criminal investigations. And you got a guy like Eric Holder, the attorney general, who wrote the Eric Holder paper that says you got to take into account all the collateral damage of prosecuting a corporation. Basically, they've got free reign over anything, because if you prosecute them, it will hurt their workers and it'll hurt all these other things. And so you can never prosecute a corporation ever. That's bad. And then Neil Barofsky, who I admire very much, he was SIGTARP, the special investigative general overseeing TARP funds, and he talks about Geithner being terrible. And anyway, so you deal with these things, and the reason why I like Bernie Sanders is because he's an independent running for the Democratic nomination, and the reason why he's facing such stiff opposition from big media companies and the big corporations is because, unlike President Obama, who back in 2008 was going to be a guy that is going to push for progressive change in many ways, but is also going to allow the corporations to continue to have their rule, putting Larry Summers in. I mean, Larry Summers as your chief economic advisor, the guy who said Africa is underpolluted and let's find ways to pollute it more. That's your chief economic advisor. The guy is a terrible person. So Obama didn't face the same sort of rigor because they kind of knew that he was going to let a lot of these things take place. Bernie Sanders is scary, right? Goldman Sachs, they're scared of him. Big investment banking firms, Walmart probably terrified. Companies doing big business overseas with overseas slavery, right? They're terrified of him. So that's what you're seeing this opposition come in. And what I'm surprised by and what I'm motivated by is that with all this opposition, with media blackout, consistent media blackout, with the DNC basically trying to just give the nomination to Clinton, right? You're still seeing this uprising and people not being dissuaded by the fact that every time you turn on the news, it's Bernie Sanders is a loser. He can never win. He doesn't have enough money. He's an idiot, and still people say, well, something seems wrong to me. And so this is what I've been thinking about a lot lately, especially I watched The Big Short again last night. I watched it. It's a brilliant movie. I don't know if I should be promoting it so much. I don't know anything about the guys that made it. Maybe they're terrible people, but it's brilliant. It's really well done. And I've been talking about this investment banking crisis. We have another crisis coming. We have not changed any of the regulatory policies. We're looking at another, I believe in 18 months, we're going to see another recession that is massive. And I've gotten bankers to admit that to me. You take a look at what we've done. CDOs have just changed names. We need real reform, and we haven't gotten it. And that's the danger that we face. And so you need a guy like Bernie Sanders. You need a new Congress. You need things that are going to come into place that are going to start protecting the American people from the stupidity and greed of Wall Street. And that's the change we have to make. It's not brilliance. It's not some sort of charming existence. It's stupidity and greed. And that same stupidity and greed runs through our political system. The political elite don't have any idea of what's going on. They say they do. There's a very funny book called This Town. It's a bit of fan nonfiction, but it talks about all the DC players and how it's Hollywood for ugly people. But at the end of the day, they don't know what's going on. They say they know what's going on. They pretend like they know what's going on. But look what happened with Donald Trump. The guy is this lunatic sort of fascist that everybody thinks is a joke, and suddenly he's the front runner of the GOP. He's going to get the nomination, okay? And 6 months ago, all the political elite just knew. They know. I know he's a joke. It's impossible. Same thing, Bernie Sanders. 8 months ago, he's a joke. It'll never happen. The truth is, stupidity and greed are running through the highest levels of all of our systems. And we can fix it. We can change these things. You vote for different people. You get different regulatory agencies. You put smarter people in the room. You take the money out of the equation. You get I'm reading Jane Mayer's book Dark Money. You get the Coke industries and stop letting them just throw toxic waste on everybody. But it's going to take a concerted effort, and that's what I like about what I see. So with Bernie Sanders, you got people motivated, they're fired up, and they're going down the line. They're walking it down. Every day, every day, every day. Political change doesn't happen on a whim. It doesn't happen on one tweet or one Facebook post. It happens every single day. You make a decision, you get up out of bed, you make a decision, and you go again. Okay? Yeah. And that's what we're doing.
And there's a lot of people out there that are voting for Bernie Sanders that are not progressive or are not Republican or not Democrat. They're all different political philosophies. And yet he brings something to the table that everyone appreciates because he's standing up for literally every group that's been disenfranchised by the government. And I think that's really important because you were mentioning how it doesn't matter if we see eye to eye on gay marriage or if we see eye to eye on abortion. like, we really need this election for people to view the books, look at the money, and see what's happening in Congress and how much is not getting done and how many lives are being affected by that gridlock, and understand that we need people willing to stand up and come up with solutions. And we've got Bernie Sanders with solutions that 170 economists, including Robert Reich, are going, this is fantastic. We need this guy in office. He's got a great plan, and his progressive candidates do too. So I wanted to show this one video of Bernie Sanders because we were talking about him being consistent. This is from 1989, and he is talking about the broken two-party system in this video.
And I think the reason that we win and continue to win is that increasingly people are frustrated and angry about a two-party system which is dominated by big money and which does not pay attention to the needs of working people or elderly people or poor people. And I think if you talk common sense to the people and you say the government is supposed to represent the needs of those people who today are not getting a fair shake, you know what? They'll vote for you. And the problem that we have nationally in this country is that the two-party system dominated by big money is not delivering for ordinary people, which is why people are giving up on the political process, why they're not voting, and why there is a great deal of anger and frustration at the political system as it now exists.
Yeah, so that's, you know, that was Bernie talking about it back then. And sadly, that was 1989. And he was saying it back then, and we still haven't gotten more people surrounding him to help him out. So that's why Preston is running. He's running for the 12th District in California, the San Francisco area. And I wanted to see, John Spalding, have we got some comments or questions for Preston now about this, now that we've had a huge discussion about money in politics and the two-party system?
Yeah, absolutely, and keep your questions coming in there, everybody. So we have some great comments and questions. Let's see. New Pulse 75. She said, she or he said, "Go for it, Mr. Pikus." She's also going to ask her sister, who does live in San Francisco, if she knows of you. Ryan Farrell said hello from your district, so he is watching. And Johan Manuel and Lorelai Larella want to know, like, kind of, why did you run for Congress, and or what was your driving mood to go into politics? So if you could kind of address both of those with one question, kind of, why'd you go into politics, and why for Congress?
Yeah, so I don't really want to go into politics, is the truth. My staff hates when I say that, and they tell me it sounds stupid, but it's true. I wrote a book back in 2013 called Send Our Reps to Rehab, and I argued that campaign finance is a massive problem. And it's not like Congress people are bad people. They're not like, I want to go out and just screw over Americans. It's just that they need money to get reelected. That money comes from a certain place, and so they got to say the things that the people with the money want to hear, and so then they kind of just, it goes along. And so I wrote the book. I travel around the country. I talk to a bunch of people, and then when I get done talking, they'd say, okay, so what do we do? And you know, I really admire Cenk Uygur over at the Young Turks, and he talks about, you know, a constitutional amendment, and I really admire Lawrence Lessig, and he talks about building a super PAC. And I thought, well, Article 1 of the Constitution says, if you don't like what your government's doing, vote for a new Congress. And so I said to people, here's what you do. You vote for Congress people that are independent, small money, anti-corruption candidates. And they said, okay, show me one in San Francisco. I said, well, we don't have one. And so I talked to my wife, and I said, you know what? I think we got to be the small money, anti-corruption, independent candidate in San Francisco. She agreed, and so now we're running. And so when I win in November and I go to office, it will sort of be me going into the political realm to take on this massive problem that we have. But two, it's going to be me showing that I disagree with this idea that you need this elite. You need these people who are knowledgeable and so much better than you in politics to go in and do congressional work for you. Congress is of the people. I am of the people. We are of the people. And there's so many more of us than there are of them. So let's take back our house.
Okay. David wants to know, and I'm going to combine two questions. Again, David wants to know, what are some current polling numbers in your race with Pelosi? And then Friends of Bernie Sanders wants to know, do you think that San Francisco is progressive enough to vote for an independent? Aren't the established party machines strong there?
Yes. Okay. So we'll take give me the first one again.
Yeah, the first one is current polling on your race.
I don't know. I don't have any polling. We have so little money to spend on anything that basically all I'm trying to do is get touches. I'm trying to get enough people to hear my name and associate it with something that's not terrible before they go to the polls. But what you need to understand, the reason why our race is I think, terrific is because in California we have what's called an open primary system with the top 2 vote getters in June moving on to the November election regardless of race. So this time it's going to be 4 people. It's myself. It's a Green Party guy that runs often and just gets 5,000 votes every time. And it's I like him. He's a nice guy, but he just it's the same 5,000 every time. And then it's a Republican and the Green Party guy, Pelosi, and myself. All I need to do is take second at that time, and then suddenly Nancy Pelosi is going to face a serious challenge in November, which she hasn't faced since 1987. Cindy Sheehan did do a nice job of putting on a race, but that was before our open primary system. And so in other states, right, for instance, Maryland, you have to run in a closed primary. Then you have a Republican that makes it, a Democrat that makes it, a Libertarian that makes it, a American Independent Party that makes it. And then as a progressive, I would be seen as taking votes away from the Democrat and helping the Republicans. In California, that's not going to happen. All I need is 25,000 votes on June 7th in San Francisco, and I win, and I go through to November. We have 385,000 registered voters, and of those, 166,000 are registered independent. So all I need is, 1 in 8, 1 in 7 to come out and vote for me on June 7th, and I take second place, and then we go on to the general election where I will put forth the winning effort to beat Nancy Pelosi in November. So that was long-winded. I'm far too long-winded.
You're doing great today, and we really appreciate you being able to take the time out to come on and talk with us. We do.
Thanks. My wife's out of town. I've been up all night with the baby, and I'm hearing myself, and I'm thinking, I ramble. I certainly ramble. This is just a fact of life. Maybe I'll answer the other question again. I'll say the reason I went into politics is because I ramble, and I hear that if you ramble, you'll be good at politics. So now I'm doing it.
No, you have a lot of truth to give out, and there's a lot of people that haven't heard it. I think that's really important.
There we go. We got some speech writing there from Angela. Doing good.
There we go. Perfect stuff. Okay, give me the second one again. I apologize.
Is San Francisco progressive enough to vote for an independent?
Oh, right. I answered that. Yes,
Yeah,
absolutely, yes. San Francisco's got really interesting politics. It's 65% Democrat, 30% independent, and then like 5% everything else. Well, my numbers are a little off. It's more. There's 30,000 registered Republicans. There's 165,000 registered independents, 166,000, and then there's like 6,000 Greens, 6,000 American Independent, and then a bunch of Democrats. And so what I've been finding when I first started trying to talk to people, I was going to people that are no party preference, independent, and I got great response. I get better response with the Democrats than I did with the no party preference folks because, it's not like people love the Democratic Party. It's not like I'll tell you another thing. I've spoken with 85,000 people in San Francisco, 85,000 voters. I haven't met a single person that says, you know what? I love Nancy Pelosi. I just love her so much, and I love everything that she does, and I believe in her. What I get is you can't beat her. She's got too much money. Even if you did, it wouldn't matter because you're not going to change anything. It'll be 1 out of 435, and so I have responses to those. But I'm not running against a very popular incumbent. I'm running against a very powerful incumbent, and those are two very different things.
And that's very similar to what Bernie Sanders is doing. He is running against a candidate who may have name recognition, but is really, really not liked because they're not trusted. So, I think that you have a great chance because Bernie supporters are spread far and wide, and we have a big influence on the internet. That's one thing that the press has not been able to hide, and it's why they're continually shocked when they see polls and numbers coming from the general public saying Bernie Sanders and the progressive movement is the direction we want our country to go in. John, did you have any other last questions before we move on to a final topic?
Yeah, just one quick one, because you said that you did reach out to a lot of voters so far. Sanjeeva would like to know, how did you target your voters, and how are you targeting your voters? What are some strategies you're using?
Well, those are trade secrets. No. Actually, so I believe in a progressive revolution, and I will tell you that I've learned so many little things that you can do differently to save money on that I will tell anybody that wants to run on a progressive platform, that wants to run as an independent, that wants to break this two-party system, you call me up and I will tell you everything that I know. Everything. I've learned so much stuff. So yes, to contact them, the short answer is any way I can. I'll give a speech to 3 people. I will meet with 1 person. I go everywhere that the people are, and I talk to them in the streets, and I do it every single day. Other than that, I do have some tricks. And if you want to know them, you call me up. You shoot an email to my campaign. I'll tell you everything. I'll save you tens of thousands of dollars on your campaign right now, as long as you're on our team. If you're not on our team, please don't call me. But if you're on our team, call me up. There's 99.99% of us, so I'm assuming if you're watching this, you're on our team, so give me a call.
Yeah, it's about moving the progressive agenda that really accounts for everyone in this country forward, and that means no more super PACs, no more corporate money, none of that dark money stuff. We're done with making assumptions you're going to do good even though you're accepting it. We have the results and the proof. We know that you don't. You aren't providing for the public, and that's why there's thousands of people out there, millions that don't have insurance still, or their premiums are ridiculously high. You know, why we're looking at single-payer health care, looking at tuition-free education, all those issues. So remember to go to Pikus2016.com. Sorry, I'm getting all tongue-tied. And what I wanted to do is I wanted to give you a chance, because San Francisco is a port city. It's obviously a major inlet for the West Coast for us. And the TPP and all these trade deals really impacts a lot of jobs in those areas. And I wanted to show this video of Bernie just recently talking. And he's standing up to Hillary Clinton, calling her out about the TPP. But afterwards, we'll discuss it. So viewers, make sure you leave a comment or question regarding the TPP coming up here.
You can always tell that the more important the issue is, the less the media will talk about it. That's a pretty good. And this is the issue of our disastrous trade policies. And by that I mean NAFTA, CAFTA, permanent normal trade relations with China, and many, many other trade agreements. I was elected to the Congress in 1990, and it took me about 8 seconds to figure out that these trade agreements would be a disaster for American workers. They were written, not to shock all of you, they were written by corporate America. And what their goal was to say, why should they pay workers in Missouri or Vermont $20, $25 an hour working in a factory when they can shut down here, go to Mexico, go to China, go to low-wage countries, and pay people there pennies an hour. And that, of course, is exactly what has happened. Since 2001, we have seen over 50,000 factories in America shut down, millions of workers, that's right, millions of workers have lost decent paying jobs. Now, I have, from day one, been a leader in opposition to these disastrous trade policies. Secretary Clinton has supported virtually all of them. Now, as a result of a lot of pressure put on her by the trade union movement, and every union in this country is opposed, as I am, to this Trans-Pacific Partnership. That's right. All right. Now, I was one of the early leaders in opposition, but as a result of a lot of pressure, Secretary Clinton eventually came out against the TPP. That's the good thing. But just the other day, that she says she wants to make it tougher for automobiles to be imported to this country under the TPP. Well, that's good. But the truth is that is not good enough. That whole agreement stinks. We got to kill it and start over again.
So Bernie brings up the point that the whole agreement stinks and just needs to be scrapped. On your webpage, actually, or your website, you talk a little bit about trade agreements, and you talk about the positives of having agreements. And I would love to have you maybe share with everybody, not necessarily why the TPP would be a good thing, but why we should look at working together with other countries, and how we can do that in a healthy way versus what we feel like we're being dragged to right now, which is leaving a lot more people out in the cold and treating them inhumanely.
Sure. No, let's be clear. The TPP is terrible. I would take that thing with my own two hands and ball it up and throw it in the trash can if I was given the capacity. Okay. Hold on, real quick. I want to give a shout out to my best genius, Erickson Foster, who designed these beautiful posters. He does graphic design. Call me up. You want some good graphics done? He does everything. He did my logos. He does everything that we do. Okay. Erickson Foster, you're the man.
Slide 2, John, has his graphics if you want to show that on there.
Show some Erickson Foster. The guy's he's a brilliant man. His problem is I'm probably forgetting a bunch of people that work with us. Drew McDowell. If I start going down the line, give me some time at the end. I'm gonna tell everybody who our brilliant folks are. TPP. Listen, this thing could be a lot different than what it is. Trade agreements could be good. If you think about basic economics, so what are we talking about? You produce a good in another country, and you want to import it into our country, the United States. Then what we want to do is we want to tax it. We want to put a tariff on it. And so the reason for that is that if you have a tariff on it coming in, then our domestic commodities, our domestic products, are more competitive than your import. Okay, so there's 1,000 different ways of doing this, but when you take a look at the TPP or any of these trade agreements, NAFTA or any of these other things, there you go, that's Erickson Foster's work right there. All these trade agreements, the people at the table, like what I was trying to talk about before, the people at the table are, wealthy corporations, Congress people or leaders of governments that are in our government owned by these wealthy corporations. And so when they're taking a look at okay, what are we going to do with these trade agreements? It's going to be something that's going to benefit these wealthy entities or these super powerful externalizing machines or whatever it is, but not the American worker, not the people who need that sort of protection. So a trade agreement could look totally different. We could have a trade agreement that says, we're going to take a look at the way you treat your labor force. And if you've got suicide nets around your buildings, then we're going to raise the tariff on your import. So that's going to be one thing. Or if you're using child labor, we're going to put some taxes on that thing as it comes in, and it's going to cost more for our people to buy that product. And so all of a sudden what you would see is the way that these corporations, these multinational corporations, are going around and finding places where the labor force is at the mercy of these powerful interests and using them like slaves, and then taking that product and selling it cheap back here in the United States because of this trade agreement, that would end. And instead what you would see is a much more beneficial to humanity, not to the 0.01%, but to humanity. You'd see a trade agreement that works for everyone. And it would work for the American workers. It would work for workers overseas. We're putting, you look at Dubai, right, where they capture workers and they tell them that they're going to get this job, and then they take away their papers and they're stuck in a slave camp, essentially. Or China, right, where they've got Foxconn and they've got the suicide nets around the buildings, and Apple can sell us a really cheap iPhone because all the workers want to kill themselves because of how bad life is, but they're profiting off of that. And Apple's profiting because they're not having to pay labor, unionized labor in the United States, so it's cheap, right? And so that's great, but it's not good. So the TPP, I can't stress how bad it is. It's so bad. It allows corporations to sue governments. So if we suddenly decide, the EPA decides that we're going to do something about fracking, which we should. I mean, let's talk about Bernie Sanders being the only guy that's saying fracking bad. Hillary Clinton. It's complex, and it depends on which way you think about it.
She headed up the whole front for pushing fracking in the first place on the country. When she was Secretary of State, she was pushing it at the time, and it's very frustrating because now they're kind of glossing over the issue, trying to pretend that she wasn't initially endorsing the whole thing, and now still endorses it under her breath. And, that it's a really big problem. We have a lot of states that are being impacted, a lot of people in rural areas that are being impacted by fracking right now. Their water is not the only thing that's the issue. I mean, the ground literally beneath them is shaking, and it's ruining the foundations of their homes. And It's ruining
Absolutely.
their air quality, and it's endangering their lives. And so fracking isn't just a word that we're throwing around that, or Bernie's throwing around. It's a real serious epidemic. It's a problem, an environmental epidemic, because if we don't stop what's happening, there's going to be a lot more earthquakes in the future and a lot more people that are going to have lives lost or have major health conditions.
Right.
It's really bad.
And let me finish my point. At the end of the day, trade agreements, if we had a Congress that cared about what 99.99% of us think, if we had a president like Bernie Sanders, or there's no other candidate right now, but if we had a president that cared about what the regular folks think, the 99.99% of us, you showed the wrong graphic earlier. But it's good, right? The stadium, 100,000 people screaming at a stadium. 0.01% is 10 people at that stadium. 10 people. You're at a football game. You're looking around. There's 10 people that matter to Congress. That's our good one. Erickson Foster did a much better one that I've got somewhere else. But when you're only paying attention to those 10 people, that's oligarchy. And so these trade agreements, they could work. It would be you got a Congress that sits down at the table and says, you know what, I actually care about what my constituents think. You got a president that sits down at the table and says, you know what, I'm not interested in what the investment bankers want or what the oil companies want or what the donors from Walmart want. I care about the American people. Suddenly those trade agreements would come out a lot differently. It's just we don't have that. At the table right now, we have people that don't care about 99.99% of us. And that's the problem.
And we have Flint, Michigan to show for it.
Absolutely.
We have a lot of towns all over the country to show for it. So, John Spalding, do we have any final questions or comments that people would like to address with Preston today?
Yeah, this one isn't related to the TPP, but Will Diaz wants to know. This is more. What are some things that you're interested in that you think would help the Latino community?
Well, that's a broad one. Tons of stuff. As a white guy, let me tell you how you help the Latino community. How do we start? Look, the number one thing to me is we have to stop the hate. There's a tendency in American public that when things go poorly, you start to blame poor people and you start to blame immigrants. And our Latino immigrants, whether they are undocumented or here legally, bear the brunt of the anxiety and the culture of fear around not enough income, a substandard of living for your children, and being one healthcare emergency away from total financial destruction. And so my argument is, I don't have any great sweeping changes. I don't have a policy that you put in that suddenly erases the racism of a Donald Trump, that suddenly, stops the crazy racist KKK white supremacist groups that want to go out and kill people. I'll meet them. I would love to meet those folks in the streets because I believe we have to stop them. But to help the Latino community, you have to go day by day. You have to go minute by minute, and you have to be an advocate. You have to be somebody that's working towards in a more equal stance. You have to be somebody that's working towards dispersing this myth of fear about immigrants, about people who look different than you, about people of a different color, of a people of different creed, of a people of different sexual orientation, whatever it is. We have to meet that every day. And so all I can say is that I meet consistently. I work hard on it. I'm a white guy. I'm aware of it, and it's not my strong suit being a white guy trying to help people of color or trying to help the Latino community. But I am dedicated to the fight, and I will bring it every single day to every single place that I enter to make sure that we're doing the best things that we can to people that we need to serve the most, and that includes people of color, that includes the Latino community, that includes our LGBTQ community, that includes immigrants, that includes so many of our individuals that get stomped on by this system right now. And that's where I go to fight. You want to talk about me getting in a fight with corruption? That's where I go to fight.
Cool. Thanks, Preston. Yeah, and I think that that's an honest answer. So I know that was appreciated. George wants to know. Should Bernie go after Clinton for exporting fracking?
Yeah. I mean, well, so, Bernie hasn't gone after Clinton over much. He's in a tough position, right? I'm facing a similar position. Hillary Clinton is a woman. She's trying to break the glass ceiling. So go after is a tough description in this political landscape. She's got – it's tough to, quote, unquote, go after. However, could he be a little bit tougher? I don't know. That's up to their policy guys. Yes, I mean fracking, the investment banking. She's got a little Teflon to her. She's got some Donald Trump Teflon on her because somehow none of this seems to stick. All anybody wants to talk about is emails about Benghazi, but somehow everybody's fine with $225,000 speaking fees from Goldman Sachs. So yes, she's guilty on all these charges. She worked for Walmart. I mean, she was against gay marriage 5 years ago or something, right? I mean, how does this woman stay in the race for a progressive nomination to the President of the United States? I don't know. I mean, I do know. I'm sad about the knowledge of it, but altruistically, existentially, I don't know. How does this happen?
Well, in previous campaigns, in the previous presidential election cycles, we weren't talking about big money in politics yet. If Bernie Sanders had run back then, we would have been addressing that issue. And it's only because we needed someone to stand up and say, hey, I can do this without that because I'm here for the people and I believe the people will believe in me. And, having her contrasting fundraising from his is just it's so polarizing in this election. And yet it's something that we've needed to see for years, just like he was saying back in 1989. I mean, we've just been waiting for a candidate who has the consistency to stand up, and then people like you have risen up as well now because of it. That courage is very important, but also the consistency is the most important. People want someone to be honest. They want someone to have consistent morals and to stand up for everyone else, to stand up for those that are different from them or that have a different lifestyle. And when we don't see that in candidates, it doesn't matter if they're a Democrat, it doesn't matter if they're part of the political platform that you aspire to. Trust is lost, and it's really hard to see them as someone who stands for the community after that.
Yeah. And one last one from Justin, just a quick couple sentences. How high is climate change on your list of priorities?
The highest it can possibly get. We're destroying the earth. We're creating too much waste. We're burning too much fuel. We're going to continue to do it because corporations are externalizing machines, and dirty, terrible corporations like Koch Industries want to throw poison on everybody as much as they can. You don't get 97% consensus out of the scientific community very often. Einstein wrote relativity in 1905. They didn't even agree on that until 1918. So to have 97% consensus, it's happening. It's real. I don't know how wrong people against it can be. We have to change it. We have to regulate. We have to fight it. We have to do something. We're going to burn up the dang planet. It's going to be terrible.
So just one more comment on fighting it. There's been a couple comments in the chat tonight, but your constituent Ryan and I had a little preview earlier from you and your viewpoint. He said he would love to see you and Trump in a room. I just thought that you might like to know that.
Yeah, I don't think that guy will get in a room with me anytime soon.
No, but I think that's good as far as the questions tonight. You did a great job handling everybody, and thanks everybody out there for your questions.
Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you, John. So we want to show just a couple of final slides. John, slide 20, it shows the California primary, and Preston, you talked about this a little bit earlier about the significance of the way that people can participate. And I want to make sure that I have the right primary date on there because I thought you had mentioned a different date, but I'm pretty sure June 7th is it.
Yep.
And so you do have to be registered by May 23rd as Correct. Either a Democrat or a no party preference in order to vote for Bernie. And that's how they vote for you too as well, Preston, is that correct?
Exactly.
Okay.
So look, you can register as Democrat, you can register as no party preference. There's been some confusion about what's called the American Independent Party. That's a xenophobic sort of racist Pat Buchanan group. You don't want to register there.
Okay.
Register as a no party I recommend no party preference. If you want to do Democrat, do Democrat. And then you'll vote, and you can vote for Bernie that way. You can register as anything and vote for me. So if you, I don't know, I can't imagine you don't care. You care about the presidential, register no party preference. Yes.
I know of a lot of people that are like, the second they're done voting, they're switching their thing back to independent or non-disclosed, because they just can't be a Democrat right now. It's just too upsetting that they're still allowing this kind of money and this kind of corruption to continue.
Yeah,
So.
They're embarrassing. They're embarrassing so many of us. Yeah.
They are. So John, slide 21 has some of his contact info for people. You can get a hold of him on his website through it's Pikus2016.com. He also has a Facebook page, and he has a Twitter account. And a lot of those videos and fun, tongue-in-cheek kind of raw, totally Preston, like slogans and stuff you can find on there. And I ask people to definitely go and check it out, because I think that the truth that you're bringing out is got a humorous side to it, but at the same time, it really does bring a nice, clear picture of what's happening in San Francisco, in California, and also all over the country from your point of view. So if I wanted to give you a few seconds to say any final words today, and thank you so much for being on our show. I wanted to thank John Spalding and also John Ellis today for helping with the production of the show. And I'll just turn this over to you, Preston. Any last words for voters?
Sure. Well, you know what? I just got to say thank you to everybody at Bernie2016.tv. You guys do a great job. The visual is perfect. It's beautiful stuff. And I just want to say that at the end of the day, the most impressive thing about what's happening right now in this country is that there is not a single thing that can stop us except ourselves. There are so many people out there like Bernie2016.tv, like these folks that I work with that do the Burn Baby Burn disco party that I was at the other night, that do the Bernie Sanders debate watch parties at the Slate Bar here in San Francisco, that do there was one just last weekend, Weekend at Bernie's, run by a good friend of mine. So all of these people are putting together all this effort, and not one of them is doing it for profit, not one of them is doing it for power, but people like you are doing this. People like us, we're doing this because it's the right thing to do. And we see what's happening in our country, and we say enough is enough. It is time to take this thing back. It's gone far enough. And so all I want everybody out in the universe of internet to think to themselves is, this fight goes on. This fight goes on no matter what. Bernie Sanders, we lost a little one on Super Tuesday. I believe we're going to pull through with this nomination. But even if we don't, the fight goes on. You don't pack up your bags and turn around 25 million people and go home because of DNC policy. We're going to fight this one, and I'm fighting it in 2016. I'm going to fight again in 2018. I'm going to fight again in 2020, and I hope you'll join me, because we're going to win. Not because it's an easy thing or because it's an expedient thing, but because we have to. We have to win, and we have to keep going until we do. So thanks so much. I appreciate everybody watching and sending in your questions, and I appreciate your support. And hopefully you'll come out, and if you're in San Francisco, come out and hang out with us.
Thank you so much. All right, so the final video we have to close out our show today is actually just like what Preston said, enough is enough. And I wanted to, it's by Hall Williams, I think is the name, but I wanted to thank Preston again for coming on the show and taking the time to really chat with us while your sweet little one was sleeping. So we hope that you guys will join us again for another episode soon. And if you get up and dance, we're cool with it. Anyway, take care, and we'll see you again soon.
Rocking back and forth. As my camera just panned back over, you could see this large section of protesters I was referring to earlier. They're now shouting, "Bernie, Bernie," obviously in support of Bernie Sanders.
Rise up, children! Gonna take it back. Feel the burn. Enough is enough. Yeah. Enough is enough. Gonna rise up. Enough is enough. Gonna take it on back. Yeah. Enough is enough. All right. Well, the time has come for us to fight. Stand up strong for our rights. System, it's rigged, you see, not to work for you and me. But love, it's stronger than hate. Something where they just can't relate. And the truth, they hide, you see, in the lies. Enough is enough, yeah. Enough is stronger than hate. Enough is enough. Rise up, children. Enough is enough. Hey, they bust you for smoking pot, destroy your life, let you rot. Well, the bankers, they steal from you. They get a fat raise, yeah, maybe two. But we're on to that, yeah, we're on to that. We're gonna take it back, let's take it back. I know they think they're really tough, but enough is enough. Yeah, legalize, don't criticize. Enough is enough. We're gonna break up them banks now. Enough is enough. Yeah, come on. Enough is enough. Now the children just wanna learn about the world, how it turns, but they go to school with fear, not love, cause the friend might just have a gun. Once the gun, what do they face? Life or death. Hey, ain't this great? Well, here comes Johnny with a gun. Enough is enough. Yeah, come on, children. Enough is enough. We're gonna rise up, rise up. Enough is enough. Gonna feel the burn. Enough is enough. Yeah. Well, the poor man, but we put them down. Why help them? They're mostly brown. What the fuck did he just say? Yo, Black Lives Matter every day. Ignorance is your disgrace. I don't care now what it takes. Racism has got to go. Enough is enough. Yeah, come on, people. Enough is enough. We're all equal in the eyes of the Lord. Rise up, rise up. Yeah, come on.
Is it acceptable that in America the top 1/10 of 1% now owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%? Is it acceptable that while the average American works longer hours for low wages, 58% of low or middle income is going to the top 1%? Is it acceptable that Wall Street and billionaires are spending hundreds of millions of dollars trying to buy elections? Is that democracy or is that oligarchy? Is it right that in the greatest, wealthiest country in the history of the world, so many of our young people can't even afford to go to college or leave school deeply in debt? In the wealthiest country in the history of the world, if we stand up, fight back, we can do a lot better. That's why I'm running for president.
Rocking back and forth.
Huge